Hi guys and welcome back to Sheddy's Kitchen. I'm Sheddy. Today we are looking at making a homemade chicken curry. So are you ready? Let's get cooking. So for this dish, you are going to need one medium-sized chicken, and we've cut them into smaller chunks. Make sure you clean and wash that and clear anything that you don't want in the curry itself. You will need 250 grams of chopped onions. And you see we just chopped them quite small there. That's important to do. So when you do get to initially cooking these, it's better that they're slightly smaller. They'll brown much easier. Next, what you're going to need is some ginger and some garlic. Not how it's shown over here. I'm just going to show you alongside this dish. And what you require in this dish is we have 1 teaspoon of grated ginger alongside 2 teaspoons of garlic. You will need 250 grams of chopped tomatoes. Now, we use tin tomatoes for this, but you can use fresh tomatoes, that's not a problem at all. You will need 40 grams of fresh chopped coriander. Three green chilies, and these will be chopped before being added. Half a teaspoon of turmeric powder, this is known as haldi. Two teaspoons of red chili powder. One and a half teaspoons of cooking salt. And for your cooking salt, when you end up making the dish, if you feel that there's not enough salt in the final recipe, you can add more later on, but we'll use 1.5 teaspoons to begin with. You'll need 2 teaspoons of dry coriander. Half a teaspoon of ground cumin. This is known as jeera. You will require some sunflower oil. And lastly, you'll require some water. Okay, you're going to need quite a big pan for this when cooking, because this dish will be enough for about 4 people. Just be really careful because it will get quite hot. I'm just using a dishcloth over here to hold one side. That'll give me support when I'm making the dish if you haven't got a handle on there. So the first thing you need to add is some sunflower oil. I'm just going to add a certain amount. So I'm going to add about 200 mils in there. If I need more, we'll add a bit more in a moment. The gas is on quite high heat. I'm just going to let that heat up for a bit. Okay, so the oil has been on for a tiny bit, yeah, so it's just actually getting quite warm. We're going to add the onions now to this. Give it a little mix. Make sure that the bottom of make sure the onions don't catch the bottom too often, because the last thing you want is for it to stick. The oil that we've added in at the moment, we'll have a look and see if we need to add any more oil. If you remember, we've added about 200 mils of oil at the moment. We'll just keep it by sight to whether we need to add more. Don't let the onions get stuck to the bottom. Give it a little stir every so often and then leave it. Add a tiny bit of oil to that, just a few drops really, there you go, and that should be enough. So about 210 mils of oil should be enough for this recipe. Every so often give it a little mix and then let it carry on frying in there. What we're looking for over here is for the onion to start browning before we add anything else. Okay, it's been about 5 minutes now. You can see the onions are getting quite brown. Just make sure you are getting the edges of the pan as much as you can, because there's a tendency for onions to actually stick there. We are only going to be frying for approximately a minute more before we start adding any of the other ingredients. See, it's a lovely brown there now on the onions. Okay, now we're going to start adding a few more of the other ingredients. We're going to add the chopped tomatoes in now, carefully. You need to now add the red chili powder. The salt. The turmeric, which is the haldi. Now start giving that a quick mix. What we need to do is try to reduce this now. We want a lot of the water that was in the tomato tin. We want that to start to reduce down. Make sure you keep mixing that, and it's starting to reduce down. The smells are absolutely amazing here. You can feel it coming up really nicely. Just make sure it doesn't stick though. Keep giving that a mix and getting the edges of the pan as much as you can. Just a tiny bit of advice when you are actually cooking this, I'd suggest you have any doors open or windows open just to allow a lot of the smell initially at this stage to get out. It has a tendency to get caught on your clothes and it's quite concentrated. A tiny bit of water I'm going to add to that. And just keep stirring. This is really nice now, and it's getting very hot, and as you know, curry is a dish best served hot. Just add a tiny bit more water just to make sure, just a tiny little bit there, to make sure that the onions or tomatoes are not actually sticking to the pan. I'm just going to add in now my mixture, the grated mixture of the garlic and the ginger. If you remember correctly, it was 2 teaspoons of the garlic and it was 1 teaspoon of the ginger, but ours is a mix, so it'll be 3 teaspoons in total. So we'll pop them in now. Quickly mix that in. Mix it thoroughly. Make sure it's not sticking to the bottom of the pan. I'll need to add a tiny bit more water. You can see a tiny bit of sticking. So make sure it doesn't stick. Add a tiny bit more water in. And keep giving that a stir so it doesn't catch the bottom of the pan. I'm just going to add 2 teaspoons of the dry coriander powder in now. And as you can see, we've chopped the green chilies, the 3 green chilies. We'll pop that in now, and we'll, again, just at this point, just make sure you keep stirring as quick as you can to avoid any sticking of the ingredients to the bottom of the pan. I'll just add a tiny bit more water into that to make sure it's not sticking. Make sure you keep getting them edges. It does get a tiny bit stickier, and add in that water if you feel it sticking to the bottom. You don't want any of it sticking. So since we've added the last ingredients, it's been approximately, say, about 4 minutes. Just make sure it doesn't stick to the bottom. You have to keep adding the water here, it's important, while it's all frying in there. So I'm just going to add a tiny bit more water to this, but as you can see from the mixture, you can see the oil bubbling toward the top now. And that's our indicator that we'll be adding the chicken to the mixture next. So in about a minute's time, we'll add the chicken. You have to be quite patient with this. It has been approximately 10 minutes since the start of cooking. Okay, it's time. You can see the oil bubbling right near the top surface there. That's our indicator. We need to start adding the chicken to the actual dish. There you go, chicken's in. Give that a good mix to make sure that the chicken is coated with all them lovely flavours. So we're still reducing down here at the moment. Make sure you give it a good solid mix every so often. The chicken is starting to cook over here at this moment. And do be aware still that if you do see any sticking of the ingredients towards the bottom, add a tiny bit more water to the dish. You still need to do this every so often to avoid sticking. You can see the texture of the chicken is starting to change there. But I will give you a better indicator to when we add the next ingredient. So it's been approximately another 5 to 6 minutes and it's still cooking away. What we've been doing throughout this process is making sure we're adding a tiny bit of water at each time. Don't be fearful of adding that water to stop it sticking, and give it a proper stir right around. If you see the sticking, keep adding a tiny bit of water. We have been doing that all the way through this process. Okay, so we've carried on mixing this. Just to make you aware, we've added about 2.5 glasses of this water during the whole process. And as I suggested before, you need to keep doing that. So this has been cooking now for approximately 10 minutes, and a very, very good indicator so you know when we need to add more of the water will come at the stage when you look at the chicken leg, and it is a really good indicator here to when it's ready to move the next ingredient. You can see on the chicken leg, you can see how the actual piece of meat has peeled away from the bottom of the leg and it's gone about halfway up. That's the indicator to add the next bit of water. You see it just peeled away just at the edge over there, and that's your indicator that we need to move on and add a lot more water. Prior to adding the water though, I just want to explain that normally when you go to restaurants, you can either get a dry form of a curry or you can add more water. So when you go to restaurants, they will actually serve you this as it's prepared now, whereas at home, it's more traditional to add water and dilute this down. The purpose of that is that when you eat this curry, when it's diluted down, at home with chapatis, we like to soak all the juices of the curry directly into the chapatti, and we prefer eating it in that manner. Okay, we're going to add this water now to it. It's ready. We're time to add the water. So I'll give you a measurement guide in a moment how much water we have added. So I've added 1 full litre of water to this dish now. I'll give it a bit of a mix. And then we'll let this carry on cooking for a bit. And I'm just going to pop the lid onto that while that boils away. For 5 minutes we need to do that. Okay, so now you can see that the water's reduced down quite a lot. We've had this on the stove now for approximately about 10 minutes. It depends on the pan you're using and probably the cooker, depending on how quickly that will happen. But you can see it's reduced down quite a lot. And what we're going to do at this point over here is we're going to add the coriander directly. And I'll just quickly give that a mix in now. And just a quick mix of that. And finally, I'm going to add the half a teaspoon of your cumin powder, which is the jeera. There you go. And give that one final mix. Just as a quick reminder, the lid on the pan was on for 10 minutes. That allowed it to obviously evaporate the water to start reducing a lot quicker. And we're just going to turn the gas slightly down now. I'll just drop the gas. Give it one more mix. I'm going to leave that to just boil away now on a lower heat for 1 minute now, and that's it, that'll be done. Okay, so it's been approximately a minute now, and that looks absolutely perfect. You can turn your gas off now, that is now ready. So here you have your finished dish. This will seriously impress your friends and family. We are serving it alongside some chapatis, and we have included the link in our channel, at the bottom of our channel, so that you can actually follow and see how to make the chapatis that go alongside this dish. We're going to finish the dish off with a tiny bit of coriander at the top, just for presentation purposes, to make it look that bit nicer. And we'll just sprinkle a few over there. And there you have it. That looks amazing. So here's the finished dish. Time to now get the seal of approval from my mum and dad. Wish me luck. As you can see, I've met the seal of approval. For any new recipes and any updates to any new recipes that we post, please like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you. See you soon.